George Harrison, born on February 25, 1943, in Liverpool, England, was a legendary musician, songwriter, and one of the most influential figures in the history of rock music. As the lead guitarist of the Beatles, he played a crucial role in shaping the band's sound and contributing to their iconic songwriting. Harrison was the youngest of 4 children born to Harold and Louise Harrison. Growing up in a post-war Liverpool, George developed an early interest in music, inspired by the skiffle craze and American rock and roll. His enthusiasm for music and guitars led to his friendship with his schoolmate Paul McCartney, who introduced him in 1958 to John Lennon, whose band was called the Quarrymen. Initially, John was reluctant to allow Harrison into the band because he was not yet 15, but Paul persuaded John to allow George to join. After 2 auditions, the second of which took place on the upper deck of a Liverpool double-decker bus, Harrison's skill as a guitarist and his persistence in joining the Quarrymen eventually earned him a spot in the band, which evolved into the Beatles. Initially overshadowed by Lennon and McCartney's songwriting, George began to emerge as a songwriter in his own right. His first composition, Don't Bother Me, appeared on the band's second album, with the Beatles, in 1963. As the Beatles' success skyrocketed, so did George's reputation as a guitarist and songwriter. He introduced the sitar to the mainstream with the inclusion of Indian music elements in songs like Norwegian Wood and Love You Too. His fascination with Eastern spirituality and culture became a defining aspect of his identity. He and the Beatles traveled to India in 1968 to study transcendental meditation under its creator Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. George Harrison was married twice. His first wife was the international model Pattie Boyd, who he married in 1966. They divorced in 1977 without issue. In 1978, he married American producer and human rights activist Olivia Ayres. They had 1 son, Donnie Harrison, who was born in 1978. After the Beatles disbanded in 1970, George Harrison embarked on a successful solo career. His triple album, All Things Must Pass, released in 1970, featuring the hit single, My Sweet Lord, became a critical and commercial triumph. The album showcased his ability to craft deeply spiritual and reflective music. Harrison also collaborated with other guitarists and musicians, foremost among them was Eric Clapton, who was invited to record the lead guitar on the song While My Guitar Gently Weeps on the Beatles' White Album. Other musicians he worked with were Bob Dylan, Billy Preston, Tom Petty and Jeff Lynne, with whom he co-founded the supergroup The Traveling Wilburys. Throughout the 1970s, George continued to release albums, including Living in the Material World in 1973 and Dark Horse in 1974. He also organized the historic Concert for Bangladesh in 1971 along with Ravi Shankar, the Indian sitar maestro, one of the first major charity concerts, demonstrating his commitment to philanthropy. George's career experienced highs and lows in the following decades, with notable releases such as Cloud 9 in 1987, featuring the hit Got My Mind Set on You. In 1997, George was diagnosed with throat cancer. Despite his illness, he continued to create music, releasing the album Brainwashed posthumously in 2002. On December 30, 1999, Harrison and his wife Olivia were attacked in their home by Michael Abram, who stabbed George multiple times with a kitchen knife before being incapacitated by Olivia. After being released from hospital, George's health slowly declined and his cancer returned. He was treated first in Switzerland and later in New York. Harrison passed away on November 29, 2001 at a house owned by Paul McCartney in Beverly Hills. His immediate family was present, so were two Hare Krishna devotees who were chanting verses from the Bhagavad Gita, a holy scripture of the Hindu faith. His body was cremated at Hollywood Forever Cemetery and his ashes were scattered by his immediate family in a private ceremony in the Hindu tradition in the Ganges and Yamuna rivers near Varanasi, India. Today, George Harrison's legacy lives on through his timeless music, philanthropic efforts, and enduring influence on the world of rock and spirituality.